Sorry for that delayed reception this morning. I know it's supposed to be for 10 o'clock. Just trying to get some technology working there, which wasn't compliant. And of course, compliancy and technology is important for Crowdbus, who are one of my sponsors. So look, just to briefly introduce you to what we're doing. So Jay, when is the auction actually taking place? It's not right now, so there's no bidding right now?
No, there's no bidding right now, although I'd love you to try. The next auction is on the 25th of October, that's Thursday, at the London Marriott in Swiss Cottage, and it starts at midday. We do have a pre-auction meet where we have select people talking about different areas, and that fills up the room quite nicely, and a lot of people then stay on in order to watch the auction and hopefully bid.
So how many lots are there coming up?
Well, the catalogue is a little out of date, so if anyone has one of these or is looking on our website, auctionhouselondon.co.uk, we'll see 167. 62. I think we're up to 170 now.
Wow.
So with the late lots, we had a client submit a whole lot of land towards the end, and then one of the corporate restructuring clients put in 2 or 3 last minute repossessions. So we're at the 172, which I think I said this last time, we're now our largest ever catalogue for the second time or third time in a row actually. So there's a lot of varied lots in there and a lot of opportunity. So hopefully, with the brilliant minds we have here today, we'll be able to pick out some of the juicier ones, have a look through as to what we would do or what we think might happen. But first, should we talk about
what happened last time?
So for everyone who watched the last time, we had spoken about lot 4, which was a 3-bedroom terrace house in Tubbs Lane, and that is Harlesden. It is Harlesden. Yeah, the rear of the property had suffered an explosion from the boiler, I think, and it separated the wall from the rear part of the property. It was guided at 275 and sold at the auction for £570,000. That was a good one. We also looked at lot 2, which was the short leasehold flat in Streatham with the unknown tenant. That was guided at, I believe, 70,000 and sold for 146,000. There were some, we spoke about Spembley Works as well, lot 80, I think. I think the guide price was £25,000. I think on the day Rod Turner was talking about, he was looking at the property and thinking, oh, there may be structural issues with the way that they've done the conversion from commercial to residential, which is why he thinks there was the local authority enforcement notice on access. And I believe that sold for 70 or 80,000. So something crazy like that. So it did quite well, but again, it's a problem that is fixable, and that's what we were talking about last time. Just because a property has a problem, it doesn't mean that it's a problem that lasts forever. You can fix it, and just by fixing the issue, you can have or add value to that property. So I think that's a good roundup of what we did last time. I think there were 1 or 2 development type properties that we're looking at. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly which ones we went through. Piotr, do you remember?
No.
But I think we covered the 3, probably the ones that were quite controversial in our talk. And yeah, so we've got a selection today.
Can we just focus briefly on selection of who's in the room? So Piotr and Jay, I made a slight mistake at the last event saying it's your book. It's both of your books coming out.
It is. You keep doing this. I was at his meet last night. I was at the Wandsworth property meet last night, and I was just about to step off the stage. I was doing the auction update, and Brendan was like, "Haven't you forgot something?" I was like, "Oh yes, the book." And he goes, "And the Facebook Live." And I was like, "Yes, and the Facebook Live." So I've really got to start plugging things a little bit better. But yeah, we're in the process of writing a book. It's an insider's guide to property auctions.
Yeah.
Later on today, we have asked Brendan if he will disclose the winner of a little competition that we had for people to give us some ideas on what we should name the book. So we've made a selection, and
ideas from
that's October 25th. Is that when it's going to be announced?
No, you're announcing the title today.
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't know that, I'm guessing. But that's what we're going to get you to do. We're going to keep you busy. He'll be disclosing the winner of the...
I'm watching 3 different screens here. You know, even though I don't have my back screen, which I'm really just on point about. Crowdbus are here, which is great. So you don't need a logo because we've got Tor, Connection, Ronald Fletcher Baker, solicitors as well. Look, if there's any comments, I know Louise already commented, so it's not a replay of Wandsworth last night, because Wandsworth last night was a short update. This is looking at what's happening right now.
Yeah, this is a practical walk through a selection of lots that the gentlemen here have picked that they think are either interesting or worth watching, or maybe they have an investment strategy that they think would add value to the lot if you were to purchase it. And generally, that's what we're looking at.
So, Piotr, in 30 seconds or less, in terms of who you are, I know you're working with Jay, in terms of the book, yourself, a little bit about yourself. Of course, Piotr is involved in the National Development Summit as well, so we can't forget about that, which is 19/1/19. My headline sponsor for that is Ronald Fletcher Baker Solicitors, and also involved in that event, main sponsor is Crowd with Us, and you'll hear a talk today. So, Piotr, anything else to add about yourself?
I think you summarized it pretty well. So I help people buy and sell properties in auctions. As you said, I'm writing a book about auctions with Jay, and that's about it. I'm co-hosting the National Development Summit with you.
Brilliant. Manish, we'll move on to you. So, in 30 seconds or less, a little bit about yourself.
Sure, I'm Manish Kataria. I'm a developer and an investor. I am the founder of Invest Like a Pro, which is a service which does due diligence on development projects, other people's development projects. And I run a circle of investors which we invest into projects together. That's it. 20
Brilliant.
seconds.
Okay. Tor, we've briefly introduced you, but is there anything else you want to add about Crowd with Us?
Yeah, so I'm one of the directors of Crowd with Us. We help property developers raise funding for their projects.
Okay, that's very succinct. Aaron?
Fantastic. Not as succinct as that, but quite similar to Manish, I'm a developer and an investor. And what I do is I also source development projects for institutional or high levels across PBSA, PRS, as well as doing some build out and development as well. So that's what I do.
Look, if you come along to my meets, do ask for the guide to the upcoming events in the property market. What should they read, Manish?
What should they read? They should read my article on there.
So, with the joys of Facebook, if I show it to you, it will go in reverse image. So, rather than try to rechange it to the normal image, come along to my next meet, which is October 25th. So, what's the article about?
Let me remind myself. Oh, this one is about personal guarantees and why investors need security. And one of the key aspects of security is personal guarantees, which are offered by developers. This particular article is a little bit critical, discriminating about PGs, so it tells you what to look out for.
And Jay, you would argue that the key article to read is 5 Easy Steps to Auction Property. So we'll leave that for another day because we need to get into the lots straight away. So what lot should we start with?
But somebody had said previously, was it lot 4 they were interested in looking at?
That's me.
Oh, that's you, there we go.
Yeah.
So just for everyone here who doesn't have a catalogue in front of them, this is 173 Watling Street, Watling Avenue, Edgware, HA8, 0 Lima Zulu. It is a 2nd floor, 3-bedroom flat. It is offered with vacant possession. And yes, what was it about this property that drew you in?
This one, what caught my eye initially was the location. So I don't live too far from here actually, so I know Edgware reasonably well, and I prefer to invest in properties which aren't too far away from where I live. So that was the first thing that caught my eye. It's a 3-bedroom flat. 230,000 is the guide price, which looks reasonably cheap on the face of it. So I decided to have a look into it. I mean, the first thing is the location. So let's just focus on that. It's on a very busy high street, very vibrant. Burnt Oak is the nearest station, half a mile away. I think Brendan knows that area reasonably well too. And it's very, very busy, very vibrant. Lots of amenities on your doorstep, station, shops, library, schools, everything's there really, whatever you need. It's a regeneration area as well. I mean, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but I think it's going places. And there's an area called Colindale, which isn't too far away. It's the next stop on the Northern Line. from burnt oak. And that's having a massive regeneration. That's going on
Massive
right now.
development, yeah.
Huge. And I think that's going to take over 20 years to regenerate 10,000 homes or something. And that's really going to put that area of London on the map. And that's why sort of this caught my interest. So good location. The property itself, it's a 3-bedroom flat, share of freehold, decent sized rooms as well. So, you know, it kind of ticks a lot of the boxes. You know, not huge service charges. I'm not a big fan of flats. I prefer houses, but this is a share of freehold, and as I said, the service charges are pretty minimal for a flat. So that was they were the sort of fundamentals. In terms of the options,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's a lot of options here. When I look at development projects, I like to have lots of different options. You know, exit strategies, and this has got, I mean, 3 or 4 different options. You can turn it into a 4-bedroom HMO. You can make it into a really nice single let. And the third option is, you know, if none of those work, you can refurb it. It needs a bit of refurb in there, about 20-25 grand's worth. Refurb it and sell it on, and market value around there is about 350 for a decent property of that size, of good quality, and you can make some good money, you know, if you decide to flip it on. So lots of different options with this one.
Okay. And who do you think would be the primary type of purchase for this? Would it be more of an investor, stroke, refurb kind of investor, just refurb, rent, and then sell, or?
Yeah, probably that would be the primary target. But you know, anyone who's looking for income. So HMO investors who are looking for decent income. When I worked out the ROIs, you're looking at 12% plus for this. So not the best. I think we're going to hear about more HMOs. Later on in this Facebook Live. But it's, you know, 12% is decent for London, right?
Yes.
So a decent HMO without much work needing to do to it, and fairly low risk.
No, I like it. When I saw that you had selected this one, I had all kind of visions in my head that he was thinking, is the roof space demise to the property? Can I go up? Can I do anything interesting like that? I also thought you may have brought up HMOs, so not that I go too much into it, but I wanted to make sure, because I know that Harrow, Barnet and places like that have really kind of strict HMO licensing Article 4 areas. And I do not believe this falls under the Article 4, but I don't know what their selective licensing programs are in Harrow. So maybe it's worth having a look at that if that is an option, because that is a real hot topic at the moment.
So I know Des has asked a question, or a statement more than a question, but what I would say is the best place, the biscuits. Brian's already spotted a biscuit.
Are they already up?
They're taking the space up, aren't they, in a way there? So
there are biscuits.
But Brian, in December, there won't be biscuits, there will be Christmas crackers.
There will,
and it will be, just remind me the date, Jay. Is it the 5th or 6th?
We, I think, had gone for the 5th.
5th.
We had gone for the 5th because that was a clear week before the auction, and we thought that would give people enough time to really dig deep and do their due diligence and make a decision.
Look, this one's a condensed 30 minutes or so, but the next one is 2 hours long.
2 hours, so it's a lot of endurance for the folks here and in virtual world as well.
So, can we move on to a different lot?
Yeah, where were we after that? Because I know I had suggested lot 23, and this one, you never know what people are going to say when you're on one of these things and you pick out a lot which is close to £1 million. But for the location, it's an unbelievable price. This is a lower ground floor flat. It is. If you're looking at the catalogue, I know this is in reverse. There is a floor plan there which is almost indecipherable, but you can get a real feel that this is the entire length and breadth of that building. This is a full width and length flat. This isn't like it's been split into 4. It's a massive part of a building in Primrose Hill. At the moment, I do not think it's laid out in the most efficient way. I would imagine, I don't know what the HMO status of something like this could or would be. It has direct frontage onto the shared gardens, which I think is actually really important for that kind of area in terms of resales or rentals. But what I do like the idea of is, because it is a share of freehold, and the work required would be minimal, I would look at splitting this into 2 separate flats. And if that's the case, even if it was 2 2-beds or a 2-bed and a 3-bed, with minimal internal works. I mean, it needs modernisation anyway. I think this is a really, really good opportunity for somebody.
Yes, I recently got a text message from someone offering this to me for 1.25 million. And I researched it and I looked at, oh, it's in the auction.
Well, maybe they're going to buy it from which does happen. It does happen. It's a good route for people to buy and then sell to investors.
Don't you think it's quite an unusual property find in the auction lot, Jay?
A little bit. I mean, it's not the kind of area generally where you would find auction properties. But then again, there are some big commercial auction companies that sell auction properties in Knightsbridge and Chelsea. It's auctions aren't just specialised to certain areas that people think are progressive or up and coming or areas that need work. Or it is basically anywhere. It's any property that you can add a degree of value to, or is priced at a point where you can make a degree of profit. That is what the auction is all about. And for this kind of property, yes, it needs work. The price reflects that. Yes, it isn't laid out correctly. The price reflects that. But with the work required, I still think there is margin there, and I think it's a good opportunity. Obviously, thinking at the purchase price level of this, you need to be taking into consideration how you're purchasing it, because you want to be as tax efficient as possible, I imagine. And that's really my comments on it. Does anyone have any thoughts or feelings on it?
Do you know what the lease on this is?
The lease, it was.
It's a share of freehold.
It's a share of
So
freehold.
it might always be
But the
900
lease
something.
was fairly long when I'd seen it. But I think the legal pack is available for it already. So
Yeah, no, I didn't see the share of freehold, so that's good.
so anyone can literally just jump online now, have a look at it on the website, view the legal pack. Any legal pack in this catalogue or most auction catalogues you find are free to register for and to download. So don't be shy, have a look. Being informed is better than
I think this property is like kind of something like was split into 2 flats and then increase the value of it.
Yeah.
Then you can get much closer to the £1,000 per square foot.
Yes, that is really my feeling. The flat itself, if you look at the floor plan, kind of marries quite nicely with almost just being cut in half either lengthwise or widthwise. And I think that is in and of itself a lot of the value that people aren't seeing with it as it is right now, but with what it can be.
Jay, this auction lot is very close to where your auction actually takes place. Literally,
Yes.
10-minute drive.
Yes, yeah, with traffic, it's not far at all.
So your auction is on the 25th of October, just to repeat. Now, do people have to bid in the room, or can they do it online? Of course, not through Facebook.
No, online, no, because actually online creates too much of a disconnect. People aren't, you can't engage people that well. So what we do really well, is we invite telephone bidding. That means that you're on the phone with a real person in the room who is saying, this bid is this much, are you looking to bid? So it's more of an interactive situation, and people like knowing that they're speaking to a real human being rather than an almost disconnect that you can get with a computer. But I think those are things that are slowly crumbling away with like the advent of online auctions and things like that. But for a physical auction, a ballroom auction, where you're dealing with something that is 975 on the guide, I think someone pushing a button online will be harder than just saying, yes, I would like to bid X over the phone. You also have the opportunity to do proxy bidding, which is basically you're going to be on a flight to Dubai or wherever it is that you're going on holiday, and you won't have your phone accessible. So you put in a maximum bid, and that remains between yourself and the auctioneer. He has a duty to try and win that for you as far below your maximum bid as possible, or you may be outbid in the room, in which case your proxy is complete and you get your money back. And it's the same thing with the telephone. So if you're unsuccessful, all your money is returned to you. So it's important that people know how easily accessible the properties are. And if you cannot make the physical auction day itself, which is a shame because it's a lot of fun, if you can't, then there are means and there are ways.
So, Jay, what number lot are we going to next? I know it's a lot of...
No, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
I think Thor mentioned lot number 10, right?
Lot number 10.
Or was it number 7?
Lot 7.
Oh, lot 7, yeah, sorry, just get that thought. So this is an
Or
interesting
that's free advertising.
Turn it around.
Particularly when we've got my sponsor here as well. So,
competition, do we?
well, I wouldn't say it's competition. We'd just say we'll move on to lot 7.
Lot 7, lovely. So this is being offered by the joint administrators on a pre. This is an interesting one. This was actually in the last auction, if everyone remembers, and sold in the room for 2.3 million. And in that situation, it appears that the person who attended the auction to bid was someone who was not in a position to actually complete on the purchase. So in order to reoffer the property and to make sure that incident doesn't happen again, we have reduced the price once more, because I believe it was 2.2 in the previous auction. It's now 2 million. And anyone looking to bid on this lot must submit a £100,000 in cleared funds. In order to bid, obviously, if you're unsuccessful on the day, those monies are returned to you. You only pay money if you win a property. What attracted you to this one, Flo?
So the thing that I find interesting about it, Jay, is it's distressed. So we're not actually bidding on properties ourselves. We're assisting other developers to go off and buy properties. So we raise the finance through crowdfunding. But some of the criteria that we weight quite highly is the demographics of the area.
Yeah.
So Windsor's quite an attractive area. The rents are quite high for these flats. You know, I checked that as sort of 1,300 to 1,500 per flat. So the yield could be quite high.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what someone can purchase for, it might end up at 6% yield. And obviously it's a development opportunity. So you would expect that the buyer would, you know, after development, they'd have some significant equity in there if they get it at the right price.
Correct.
So,
I think a lot of the value on this actually is the renting of the commercial space.
yes,
because
restaurant as well. It's
because the Thames Street, I don't know if anyone knows Windsor that well. It's actually a really nice street within Windsor. It's not one of it's not the main thoroughfare, but it's one of the nicer high streets there. And I imagine if you had that commercial space up and running, you could attract a really good commercial covenant and probably a premium in terms of your annual rent.
yeah, well, we actually have a property that will be helping a developer fundraise for the equity on, which has a restaurant in it, and because of the restaurant, the yield is pushed up significantly.
Yes.
So commercial properties generally have a better yield than residential, so that's obviously attractive. Yeah.
Jay, what's the, and we're not giving advice here, that's what I just said at the outline. So this, as Anil said in last night, forget about everything we say today. You know, this is just our own informal opinion. We're not giving any professional advice.
Oh yeah, we're just a bunch of mouthy investors that like talking trash about property and stuff.
But Jay, is there optional service accommodation?
You could probably arrange something like that. I know that Windsor is one of those areas, like Richmond and places like that, that can be really quite finicky with how you use your residential and commercial space. So it'll be worth double checking that. With regards to, I mean, I see a lot of potential with something like this because I'm a big fan of mixed use, so residential and commercial offerings, because it's almost a recession-proof investment. If the high street goes a bit blank, you have the residential to back you up. If the rents are too high and the residential starts to fall, you have the commercial to back you up. So it's one of these kind of investments I like to think pension funds look at in a fairly serious way as a stoic investment.
Diversification in the same building.
Yes, yeah. But serviced accommodation is actually a really good point to make, but I think you would need to research the requirements for the local area more before you step into that ring.
And just a word on the note, is that unusual, Jay?
No, sadly, it's not as unusual as you think it is. This would also be part of the addendum as well. So there are normally a lot of specific purchasing requirements on property. So that will be contained within the legal pack. Sometimes it's in the catalogue. A lot of times it's in the addendum. And what this is a specific requirement for interested parties to bid. And it's a fair and reasonable approach to take if they want to measure the fact that someone who is bidding to buy. And a property at this value, I think that is just good sense.
So let's move on because we've got 17 minutes or less. We've got 100 plus lots to go through.
We do. Should we mentioned HMOs. Where?
Okay, so I looked at lot 49, which was in West Bromwich. And actually, that's just building on what you just spoke about. I had one eye looking at the auction lots towards a possible, obviously this is not advised, looking at a correction in 2019, just with Brexit, political climate. So I expect confidence to go from the market, even though the fundamentals remain basically the same. So my concentration here is, look, that's good 10%, right in the city centre, income already assured, and doesn't seem like there's much to be done, but the location is very central. Shopping centre next door. Now there might be a slight concern because looking at the shops out there, there's cash converters. Further down, there's a betting shop. There's a Poundland. There's a Heron Frozen Foods across from it. But then that will be reflected in the tenant that you do have. But there's been a tenant there since 2015. That's still going. And so if you have someone who is honest, hardworking enough to pay the rent, but isn't quite in the income bracket to move out at will, then you have yourself a long-term tenant there.
Aaron, can I just interject for just a certain moment? I try not to interject too many times.
Absolutely.
But would you use technology like Script to help you?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a plug for Script.
No,
So
It's good you disclosed it now.
yeah. So Script you will find at my October the 25th birthday meet, along with Ronald Fletcher Baker Solicitors. So Script are doing case studies. So if you want to know more about Script, I will include in the comments later.
And Toby and Melly are good guys anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, Aaron.
Absolutely. So as Brendan was saying, you'd use Script on something like this to see, exactly what's going on in the area, see if there's been, any planning precedents, to see where, if there's any new developments. But why I like this one, and depends on your investment strategy. If you want to just have income-producing cans, this seems like a reasonable investment. So returns 10%, busy area, loads of footfall, so that gives you options. I also do like the rent review. Not quite a fan of the break clause, but year 10 is still in 2027.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to ride past the correction, you have some income locked in.
what do people think about it being a 4-bedroom maisonette? Would anyone here consider, if the tenant was to leave at one point, maybe changing it to 2 bedrooms?
Absolutely.
And then also, I think on Script you can have a look and see what 2 bedrooms are renting for, so you can decide whether it is still viable to make that split and still get the same kind of yield, or indeed you'd be looking to get more yield by making that changeover.
And this changeover you can do it under permitted development.
Oh yes, under permitted development, definitely. So that if you're looking at just the income and how it's yielding in terms of the commercial rent being there, as Aaron says, till 2027. If your residential tenant doesn't stay there for that amount of time, you're looking to make sure that if you are being vacant on one element, at least it's not the whole of the residential. One tenant may leave, one may be there. You're basically spreading your risk of voids.
Yeah, I like this one actually. I didn't notice it, but it's a really, because you've got the yield angle, which you mentioned. You've got 10% gross yield. But actually, if you lever it up, you've got 20% plus ROI, which is a great ROI, and you've got the development potential there as well. You've got so many different options here. I like it.
And that's the thing. What hopefully everyone is seeing here is that we're talking about the property as is, but then we are theorising as to, with our imaginations and probably just our experience of what we've done previously, where we would go with it and how we would handle it to A, add the value, and B, make it profitable in the long or the short term. So it's a case of, don't just take an auction catalogue or an auction listing at face value. Look at it, look at your investment strategy and see how you can make a difference to that property, to make a difference to your ROI and obviously your residual income if you're going to keep it in a portfolio or something like that. We had mentioned HMOs, and I know someone here has selected 2 HMOs to look at, which are Peterborough, are they?
Yes, they're Peterborough.
So the first is 113.
Yeah, 113, which is Lincoln
Road.
And
So-
then, yes.
So this one here is a 10-bedroom licensed HMO, Currently, there are 2 rooms left producing just shy of £10,000, so 9,100, and that's lot 113 if you have the catalogue in front of you, or if you're looking at it online. And the guide price is 217. So I imagine there's 8 more rooms left to be let, and if you extrapolate the 2 rooms to a further 8, that sounds like a good yield to me.
Yes, so currently the rooms are let to the tenants of BDS since 2014 or something like this. And the property needs full refurbishment. That's why it's being sold at such a price. And but the main angle for this investment is really that this could be one of those no money left in deals. Because I'm helping one of my clients to sell it, but they own this property, the next property, the next property, and the next property. And the last one they actually refurbished and they had it revalued, and they had valuation 525, which is identical to this one. So this is an interesting property because of this no money left in kind of possible scenario.
So just for the people out in the big wide world who probably don't understand no money left in strategy, we've got a lot of finance people here. So just explain how the no money left in works.
So basically this property requires refurbishment. So say the guide price is 270, say someone buys it for even like 20% more than this, say 350, just for the sake of it. It will need about, say, 70k for refurbishment. We'll need about whatever 30k for all other costs. So if you spend, like say, up to 450 on this, and it revalues at 550, then you will refinance, you get 75 or sometimes 85% of the value out because it's an HMO. It would produce about £56,000 per annum income. So that way you take out all the cash that you put into the deal, and you still have the income that's being produced by the rooms.
Okay, so it's important to realise that when you're doing a no money left in the deal, the version that Piotr is explaining there is that you have a degree of income which will allow you to come out of it. Some people do the same thing with developments, and I know that some people try and do the same thing with quick flips within 3 months. There are ways to be in and out before anything really happens. So if that's something that people are interested in, then I imagine everyone on the panel will be able to discuss the no money left in to a degree. So ask away. There is obviously the sister property, which is lot number 126. This one is a 25-bedroom licensed HMO. It was previously let, producing approximately £150,000, and the guide is 750. That's £750,000. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I mean, if you're able to get that yield again, I mean, how much would you pay for £150,000?
Yes,
that's the question, really.
This is actually a sister property, and it's gigantic. Like, it's got this massive extension. It's about 16 self-contained studio flats in it. It's actually pretty big.
So what's the downside, Piotr? This sounds like fantastic. So, you know, again, we're not giving you advice, but is there any downsides to it?
Yeah, all properties require refurbishment.
Yeah.
So whoever's coming in, they cannot just rent out the rooms as they are. They would need to carry out the refurbishment.
You'd also probably look at the void rates if there was one. I mean, there was someone at your meet last night who does service accommodation who was saying that in London they look at a void rate of I think it was 15% inside London, and then outside London it was 25%. So they're expecting occupancy of 85% in London and 75% out of London. And those, I think, are really, really conservative values, because if you're in an area which is easily accessible to local shops, amenities, an area where there is business and commerce, where people are going to work and want to live near to, actually you'll find that if it's a young professional crowd that you'll be pulling into an HMO, remember that the people who are living in your HMO, that's your core market. As long as the market is there, actually your voids are a lot lower.
But that's a good point, because you know, it says 150, but I think people should be aware that that's just gross rent on a fully let basis. So you take away the voids, and obviously with the HMO you pay costs, you pay bills, right?
Yeah.
So the landlord pays the bills, and so you pay the mortgage and you pay insurance and all the rest of it. So you're probably, your net income is going to be well under 100, probably more like 70, 80, depending on how much you lever it. So just people should be aware of that. Nevertheless, you're still looking at a decent yield on that basis. I mean, I'd have to sit down and do the numbers, but yeah, it's still an income-producing asset.
Yes, and it's. I know we only have a short couple of minutes left, but that's what people are starting to look at these days. There is a lot of news out there, and I'm sure Tor know far more than I will on modular builds and certain types of pod builds and all these types of different ways that developers are being smart into creating different living opportunities for people that are probably a little bit more financially accessible. But HMOs, service accommodation, are still kind of kings in terms of what is financially available for people to move into and allow them maybe to create a saving base to then to make a property purchase on their own. And it's a great opportunity for investors, and likewise it requires a degree of refurbishment. Obviously, a refurbished property is worth more, so you're adding value with every thousand that you spend on it. So,
and some of the HMOs, you need to be careful looking at HMOs, because some properties may be used as HMOs for a while, but they might not be licensed. Now with the new licensing, there is more strict requirements. Like those properties, they actually have HMO licenses until 2022, so they meet all the requirements. Which is.
Do we have time for one more lot?
yes, anyone have a last suggestion just to fly it?
Well, this was just talking about income producing again. I think it's lot 71.
We've got two minutes on this.
It's not
As I say,
the
the
Christmas
Christmas
61.
61.
Lot 61.
I think we can do this even with 2 or 3 minutes left.
Two minutes.
Shouting
So
there.
lot 61 is right by Southend Airport.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, so right by, and what I really looked at there was the service accommodation potential for that. The values quite, I think houses there go between say 185 and 240 if I recall. So again, the value's bang in the middle if we're just looking on there. But it's proximity to Southend Airport, so that's a 3-bed and just close, a few miles away from there. In Chelmsford, you can get a service apartment for 515, and that's a whole 24 miles from the airport.
Wow.
And when we're looking at the per night prices, the lowest price per person I found was £51, but with the service apartments, and this wasn't a B&B, but the service apartments were going for £96 per night per person plus.
I'm just going to interject here. So I've actually been to Southend Airport.
Yes.
So my experience is actually expecting the airport to be open late into the evening, early morning, but they actually close. It's a lovely airport, but they close at midnight.
Well, that's what
Literally.
you want. You don't want planes going over your house at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So I can see why Aaron goes into the surface accommodation mode straight away. Are we still on?
But additionally, it's worth looking at Southend-on-Sea rail station.
Yeah.
There's a fast track. Which one is it? Is it Euston or Paddington? It's one of
In Liverpool.
Liverpool
Street.
Street.
We haven't even gotten there.
No.
As Manish was talking about the other app options.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, so it will work as a family, it will work with its proximity to London. Southend has got a nice rail system. So I think, again, it looks like it's in pretty good nick. So you're basically plug and play. You might need a spade on a few things, but hey.
Well, I think we've done really very well. We've touched on a couple of properties. I think everyone here will have their contact details available via Brendan. So if anyone has any question on any one particular input or anyone here who's said something interesting they want to learn more, then please feel free to contact. Also, please feel free to comment on the page as well. We're all tagged in, so we'll all be able to give our 2 pence. But thank you very much for joining us. Auction is on the 25th of October. And what are you going to say?
Just want to add a few things. So I know it's been a quick run through. So we've got the Bonanza on I think it's the 5th.
Yeah.
So starts at 10 a.m. again, but it will be until midday.
Yeah.
So keep that morning free.
Where is it, Brendan?
Well, it's going to be on Facebook Live.
It'll be held at my
It's going to be
offices.
held at your office. Also, of course, I've got my monthly property meets. My birthday meet is on the 25th of October. So
It's in the evening, so there's no excuse not to come to both events, the auction
Yeah.
and the evening meet. It's important we say that. So you can come to the auction and then you can tell Brendan what you bought at the auction in the evening.
And of course, I'm working right now on the National Development Summit as well, which is January 19, 2019. So just want to say huge thanks for joining us live or at a later time. Look, if you've got suggestions, feel free to contact us, because this event came out by accident almost.
Yes, pretty much.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
Cheers.